You know, I love how I was gearing up to film. I go and whip out the camera stand for it to break. So excuse the weird angle. I literally have the camera on a cardboard box, because that was the only thing tall enough. And you're like, oh, you could just put it on the desk. Well, Meg has decor on the desk that I don't want to mess around with, so this will have to do until I get another camera stand. Because the one I was currently using was Meg's old one, because the one I was using before was just atrocious. And the one that I was using, the one that Meg used to use, was great, and then it broke. It broke when I was trying to adjust it. It's like wonderful. So I'll have to get a new one. Preferably one that's like that one and not the other one, because the other one had like the weird, like, movable legs that were like, you could like bend them and stuff like that, which I guess that's fine if you're filming with like a regular cell phone camera, but I'm not using a cell phone camera, I'm using this. So that's not going to work. So yes, today we're reading another Harry Potter fanfiction. The good news is it's not about communism. The bad news is it's about food, and it's rated M. We all know what happened the last time I read a fanfic that involved food that was rated M. Rather not relive that, but hopefully I will be okay. So we'll find out. So this story is called Egg and Cress. And the author is Anon Watt. What an interesting name. Summary. It all began with an egg and cress sandwich. So, like I said before, it's rated M, it's in English, it's humor, it's Harry and Draco as the characters. This is on fanfiction.net, by the way. It has 1,398 words, 24 reviews, 33 faves, 5 follows, and it was published back in September of 2011. So the story is rather old, and it is complete. Egg and Cress. Beta Smiley Siamese Girl. I guess they mean that's the beta reader. Author's note. I recently realized that I have become slightly enamored with the idea of flatulent Draco. I therefore had to write a fic about it. It's a fanfic about farts. About farts. Are you serious? Farts. First burping and now farts. As long as it's not on the same level as Kingdom Farts, that story that Meg reviewed years ago. Oh my god. I will say it did have a funny ending with Meg breaking the camera and everything, but still. Right, let's get this over with. Draco felt, rather than heard, the rumble through his stomach. In an instant, the feeling moved swiftly south and placed itself in Draco's arse. His eyes widened as he knew this one wouldn't wait. It was coming now. With a quick muffliato aimed at his posterior, Draco discreetly leaned to his right and let it go. Unfortunately, there was no such spell as waftato, so Draco could do nothing about the smell. He wrinkled his nose and regretted having that egg and cress sandwich for lunch. Giving up on his paperwork, Draco leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. You know, you could always just hold it in. You don't have to fart, you can just hold it in until you get to a place where it's more appropriate to release it. This wasn't right. A bowl of muesli, a chocolate frog, and one egg and cress sandwich should not be making Draco fart this much. Apparently, except apparently it was. Ever since lunch, Draco's stomach had been growling and lurching, and generally protesting, only to be succeeded by some of the loudest and most bizarre-sounding farts Draco had ever heard. Keeping his desk to fart in the pace of the bathroom had worked a few times. Oh, leaving his desk, I should say, not keeping. That was my bad, not the author's. Though his flatulence echoing around the tiled walls would haunt Draco's dreams that night, he couldn't keep it up without his colleagues suspecting he was ill. I should say he was ill. Maybe he was ill. Who knew what the ministry really put in their egg and cress sandwiches to keep the costs down? Muffliato had proven useful for masking the sound of the last couple of times, but the smell would continue to linger, and really it was making Draco ill. Maybe he should go home sick. You can't go home sick if you're at Hogwarts. You live there. It's a dormitory. Draco sighed. He had this report to finish by 5 p.m. or his boss, oh, I guess he's supposed to be an adult, never mind then. Or his boss would no doubt give him a speech about time management and prioritizing and other boring shit. Well, Draco could always fart in his face and then he'd get fired. I wouldn't recommend that. It must have been that egg and cress sandwich. Draco had had no bowel problems before lunch. He had planned to have curry for tea, but swiftly changed his mind. Well, that probably would have made it worse if he did, dearie. Maybe he'd had beans on toast instead. Do you not know the song, Beans, Beans, the magical fruit, the more you eat them, the more you toot? Not a good idea. Fuck no, that wouldn't be any good. Possibly a nice fruit salad. Well, yes, that would be fine. Hang on. Damn it. Was there anything that wouldn't make Draco fart? Pulled from his thoughts of dinner when Potter walked by, Draco couldn't help but notice how Potter sniffed the air around Draco's cubicle a couple of times before pulling a face and increasing his speed. Draco let his head fall to his desk, knowing his face was now a lovely shade somewhere between puke green and mortified red. If only the windows down here were real. Draco would kill for a strong breeze right about now. Suddenly, his stomach gave another lurch, and Draco all but leapt to his feet. He hurried to the bathroom as inconspicuously as he could, not caring an iota if his workmates thought he was ill, rather than knowing he was rushing off to the toilet so often to blow the foulest-smelling wind out of his arse. As soon as the door to the bathroom banged shut behind him, Draco leaned back against it with closed eyes, released his anal muscles, and sighed with relief. Of course, that sigh was never heard. The low-pitched wail coming from his arse could have drowned out a tuba. Bloody Christ. When the fart finally ended, the silence that followed was, if possible, even more deafening. Then the silence was broken by the soft click of a lock and the slight creak of a door. Of course. Draco dared not open his eyes. Someone had been in one of the toilet stalls. I mean, it's a bathroom. You can't be shocked if you hear people farting in the bathroom. It's a bathroom. The witness to Draco's earth-shattering fart didn't speak for several seconds, and Draco had almost convinced himself that the fart fumes had made him imagine the noise. Then Draco's worst fears were confirmed. "I always knew you talked out of your arse," Potter said. Draco could hear the grin on his face. Embarrassed beyond belief, Draco turned on the spot until his forehead was against the door as he was no longer facing Potter. "Hey, don't point that thing at me," Potter cried, followed by outright laughter. Draco groaned. Of all the people in the bathrooms, Potter had to been pissing in the one Draco had hidden in to fart. "Was it your fault I smelled on my way here?" Potter asked once he had stopped laughing. Instead of answering, Draco pulled his head back from the door and let it fall back with a thud. "I'll take that as a yes." Potter's voice was getting louder as he moved closer. "What did you have for lunch?" Potter almost sounded amazed. Draco gave an indignant squeak and attempted to break for it. Unfortunately, he'd left it too long, and Potter had gotten close enough to grab Draco's arm and yank him back. The motion somehow managed to dislodge another fart from Draco, who was expecting the ground to open up and swallow him whole any moment now. "Please, that stinks," Potter commented. "I know." Draco spoke for the first time since entering the bathroom. It was quiet, barely a whisper, but without his arse making a racket, Potter heard him just fine. "Why don't you just cast an air freshening charm?" Potter asked in all seriousness. Draco's head snapped up. "A what?" He sounded desperate, and he knew it. But fuck it, he was desperate. "An air freshening charm," Potter repeated. "Hermione casts them all the time after me and Ron have had enchiladas." The grin that appeared on Potter's face was no longer mocking. It was understanding. "You fart?" Draco asked before he could stop. "Everybody farts! You honestly think..." I just can't. Bloody... "Oh, do you fart? Do you fart? Do you poo? Do you pee? Do you burp? Everyone does all of those things!" Yes, they're embarrassing and disgusting, but it's part of human anatomy and human nature. Everybody farts. Bloody Christ, Draco Malfoy. Everybody farts, Malfoy. Potter chuckled lightly. In fact, hang on a second. Oh, please don't. Potter's face screwed up in concentration. Oh, come on, no. And Draco found himself slightly alarmed. Are you kidding me? Suddenly a high-pitched noise filled the quiet bathroom, quickly followed by a loud... wet pop. Lovely, wet farts of the West. Fucking hell, Potter. Did you just follow through? No! Potter yelled, echoing eerily around the room, despite the denial. Draco noticed Potter bite his lips and shift his hips slightly. He seemed satisfied, however, when he looked at Draco and said again, more reasonably, no. Did he just, like, shit his own pants? It's a good thing I already ate. A smile started to appear on Draco's face, but before it was fully formed, he caught a whiff of Potter's disgusting-sounding fart with his nose, and the smile promptly dropped. He mentioned something about an air-freshening charm. Draco prodded. Oh yeah. Potter pulled out his wand out of his pocket. Novo Aris. He waved his wand and breathed it deep. Good as new. Draco sniffed the air experimentally. He'd gotten used to breathing through his mouth since lunchtime. Okay, that would just make it worse because then you would taste it. He did not smell egg or rotting vegetables or anything that made him want to gag. The air was clean and fresh, and now he could sit at his desk, armed with a muffliato in Novo Aris, and fought for England. Or, again, you can just hold it in until you... Almost giddy with joy, Draco gasped a thank you before leaning in and pressing his lips against Potter's. Draco didn't want to see Potter's reaction. He simply turned to the door and had to hold himself back from skipping through it. A few muffliatos and a whole host of Novo Arises later, and Draco was farting happily at his desk with a smile on his face. Oh, bloody Christ. He looked up when he heard Potter's voice. That's the smile of a free-falling man. Potter had his arms crossed as he leaned against the entrance to Draco's cubicle. Feeling uncharacteristically brave, Draco stole a glance around before widening a muffliato on his arse. Draco placed his elbow on the desk, head in hand, and leaned towards Potter and noisily released a gas trapped in his anus. Potter laughed, and they smiled at each other. Want to go out for curry tonight? Potter asked. Draco didn't hesitate. I'd love to. When Potter left and Draco got back to work, he made a mental note to send a thank you note to the lady who made the egg and cress sandwiches in the ministry canteen at the end. Well, that was a colossal waste of time. That was so bloody stupid. I say the only good thing about this story was that it had pretty good spelling and grammar, except for that one typo that I saw. But aside from that, that was bloody stupid. And I'm assuming it's supposed to be a story about Harry and Draco possibly being an item. I know that they are a popular ship in the Harry Potter fandom. I mean, I guess it's not the worst story that I read, but it wasn't exactly fantastic either. Colossal waste of time, in my opinion. Curious what else this person has written, maybe more farting stories. So, okay, so they've written 23 stories, and they're all Harry Potter. Their most recent story, which was also from 2011, so this isn't an active author anymore. It looks like it's a bunch of one-shots. So, the most recent story, Marlins and the Trouts. Don't fandoms eat other fandoms? Or Harry makes Draco watch his new favourite film, The Social Network. Okay, well at least that's nothing to do with faults or anything else. Also rated M. Then Don't Play With Your Food. This story is ridiculously short, only 140 words. Harry catches Draco playing with his food. Okay, it looks like all of these stories so far are about Harry and Draco. Oh, fixing the flu. Right. Yeah, Sex on the Beach. Okay, so that one is definitely a Harry Draco naughty story. Yeah, so it seems like every single story of theirs is almost about Harry and Draco. So I guess their favorite ship is Harry and Draco. Right, so again, it wasn't the worst thing I have read, but not exactly fantastic either, but I guess it could have been worse. Right, well, if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to leave a like and leave a comment, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, I greatly appreciate it. I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, cheerio.